All right, this is John Maines here, and for my coastal importance video for a coastal management class today, I'm going to talk about the sea otters, specifically this population here in Morro Bay, which, yes, I did drive down today just for this, and probably to get some food later, but that's beside the point. Anyways, this population is one of the most protected populations in the Southern California right now. Sea otters used to be extremely, oh my god, that's so cute. Sea otters used to be extremely abundant all over the Californias, up and down the coast. And Native Americans actually would hunt them sustainably and use their pelts for warmth. And then when colonization started happening and Russians, they're so cute. I'm overwhelmed right now. But when the colonization happened, Russian fur traders actually would come out and they would kill them and start selling their furs or trading their furs. And they would also trade with Native Americans for the furs as well. With the explosion of the fur trade and in the early like 1900s or whatever, early 1800s, even earlier actually, you would always see like high profile people wearing like otter fur pelts and everything, and it was like a status. But that decimated the otter population so much so that they were almost fundamentally extinct. Now the populations have been slowly increasing, getting better. The northern population has been increasing a lot more, has been more sustainable, just because they've been able to recover better. The southern populations, unfortunately, have suffered with infectious diseases and predation. Here in the Morro Bay estuary, they're actually extremely protected in the bay and the estuary from any predator attacks and human impacts. So they're actually really well done here. The reason that we want to keep our otters as protected as we can is otters are actually a keystone species. They're also cute. So they're a keystone species for the health of the kelp forest and the bays and everything themselves. They will feed on sea urchins and other invertebrates that would otherwise feed on the kelp. And in some places where sea otters have been eradicated, we have seen a massive increase of invertebrates and sea urchin growth that has decimated the kelp forest and created sea urchin barrens, which has been massive problems. But the sea otters will actually eat them, and so there's been a lot of efforts to bring sea otters back to those areas, especially efforts done by the Monterey Bay Aquarium along with the Long Beach Aquarium. They're in a partnership, and they've been helping these sea otters come back. So that's a leaf. So they've been trying to bring the otters back, hopefully bring them back for the health of all of our ecosystems up and down the coast. Sea otters will oftentimes, when they're in these estuaries, you can see right there, that little fella right there, they'll wrap themselves up in the kelp, so they also rely on the kelp forest that they also protect, along with many other species. That's why the kelp forests are so important, and sea otters, by extension, are important too. That is so cute. Oh my goodness. I want to study these guys for the rest of my life. But yeah, what was that? I'm getting overwhelmed with cuteness. Sorry, Dr. Anderson. But yeah, so the sea otters, they wrap themselves in the kelp, and that keeps them from floating away. You can actually see like how choppy the water is, and you can probably hear how windy it is right now. If they didn't wrap themselves up in the kelp, they would actually be like, would float away from the protected areas in their groups. So wrapping themselves up in the kelp is super important for them. They spend a lot of their time in the water. They spend all their time in the water. They actually have to eat, I believe, up to 5 times their weight in food just to be able to continue to keep warm with their fur pelts and being able to warm up and all that stuff. They're also one of the only marine mammals that are known to use tools. So they'll go down and they'll get sea urchins, or they'll get like different invertebrates and stuff, and to crack open the shells, they'll oftentimes get rocks, and they'll break them open with the rocks. I don't know if I can hear any. I thought I could hear some, but I'm not sure. But they'll get rocks from the bottom, and they'll break open the shells with those rocks, and they'll do that and get the food out, obviously. And oftentimes there's actually some scientists and researchers have reported finding out that a lot of sea otters actually have a favorite rock that they keep with them all the time. So I guess they have a rock they really love, and they're just like us. Humans like to collect rocks and or other fun things, and sea otters do too. Apparently, they like to have their favorite rock. So that's pretty fun. Oftentimes, when sea otters have their young, they will keep their young like on their chest and stuff. And if they need to dive for food, they'll wrap their pups up in the sea kelp, so then they can go down, dive, and get food for their young. So that's really cool stuff. But yeah, sea otters are super important for the environment, and they're keystone species, and we need to protect them and bring them back. I don't know if there's any other areas that are trying to protect, but Morro Bay is definitely one of the best places to find sea otters. So if anyone's interested in finding sea otters, come up to Morro Bay. You'll often see them over here by Morro Rock. And if they're not over here, they're probably in like the docks off to the left over here. But yeah, so sea otters are very important. We need to protect them, and we've seen the damage that occurs when they're not protected due to when we see it when the kelp forests get decimated, which got sea urchin barrens, and then it basically takes away an entire habitat for multiple different species, because so many species use the kelp forests as like their habitat, their home. That's where they hunt, it's where they live, it's where they sleep, from fish to marine mammals to invertebrates to everything. And when it's just the sea urchins creating sea urchin barrens, nothing can really live there except for sea urchins and some of the invertebrates. So that's why the sea otter is super important, and not many other things, marine animals will hunt the sea urchins, but sea otters figured out a way to hunt them, and so they do. That's why we need to protect them. And they're also really freaking cute and adorable. Like, oh my goodness, who doesn't want to protect these guys? They're adorable. But yeah, so they spend all of their time in the water. They're not like sea lions who come up out of the water. They spend all of their time in the water all the time. And a lot of time they'll just hang out in their little pods in the kelp. There are times, but then they also do hunt, obviously, and get what they need to get and all that fun stuff. But yeah, and so there's two different types of otters. There's sea otters and river otters. Sea otters are in the sea, river otters are in the river, obviously. Sea otters are bigger, more fluffy, more furry. And river otters are a little more skinnier. But yeah, and can I see anybody got a rock? There's some wrapped up in kelp, and he's getting his fur nice and wet. I think what he's doing there is, if I remember correctly from what I've researched and I found out, is that when they roll around and shake a lot, they're getting air bubbles back into their fur. And what does is then they get air bubbles back into their fur, and when they're constantly preening themselves, like how this guy, he's like rubbing his head and everything, that's constantly getting air bubbles back into their fur, which helps keep them warm, because I mean obviously this water is very cold. And so with them doing that, that's them always trying to keep warm. And that's why they always need to eat, like, all the time. The food is very important for them to, I can hear one of them using a rock. I think he's over here. Is he breaking? I think he's breaking it. I don't know. It sounds like he is, though. But anyways, so they're always preening themselves, getting air bubbles back in their fur to keep warm. And so with that, that's how they keep warm, and that's why they always have to eat. I'm just going through it again because I keep getting distracted because they're so cute. But yeah, so they're always eating to keep warm and everything. They do sleep, obviously, sometimes, at some point in time. But they're always eating and taking care of their young and babies. In this Morro Bay estuary, it has been one of the most successful recovery areas for Southern California. In fact, they reached a record high, reported as of late 2025 recently, of 70 adults in this population. Obviously, they're not here right now. They might be elsewhere in the estuary. But 70 adults are in this population, which is a massive growth. Has been steadily increasing in the last couple of years. It's been 40 to 50, 70. Oh my goodness, they're calling. It's so cute. But 40 to 70 has been the biggest number they've ever had. So it's definitely good. Is that a pup? Oh my god, I think that's a pup. Ah! So, yeah, and obviously, as you can see with the pup here, the population is looking to increase, and hopefully continues to increase, and this becomes a really good Morro Bay recovery area. And hopefully otters can spread out farther and farther up and down the coast and help improve our coastal ecosystems. Yeah.